Hello and welcome to Bubble Hearthing. I'm Bubble and you're fantastic. And today we're going to be going over the Quandrix cards from Strixhaven School of Mages, the new Magic set coming out on the 15th, which probably isn't going to be new by the time you watch this video. Oh well, such is life. Now before I fire my continuity director, let me just tell you that Quandrix is the name that they've given to Simic. It's blue and green. You can kind of tell. There's a kind of a blue and green theme going on in the background. So there we go. There's the whole thing is math is magic, as you see, and I do love math quite a bit. I'm looking around for some math implement. I don't exactly have one here. This is vaguely mathematical. This is a Rubik's Cube with mana symbols on it because it's awesome. My partner made that for me. Very, very nice gift. Anywho, let us go on now. So they have an interesting theme where they want to have things with creatures with power and toughness that are the same. We'll see it a few times. Not really sure how that's going to tie into too many things. It's going to be more of a coincidence than something you kind of build around, I imagine. But anyway, without further ado, let us see. So the first one is Aether Helix, a 5-mana sorcery. Return target permanent to its owner's hand. Return target permanent card from your graveyard to your hand. So 5-mana sorcery speed. I guess it's permanent, not creature. So it's not exactly unsummon. You know, it's just the sorcery speed. Bounce this, and then you get a permanent from your graveyard to your hand. That doesn't seem very good. I mean, that second ability, so the first ability costs roughly 1, maybe 2. I mean, at sorcery speed, you can definitely say 1. And the second one also costs about 2, maybe? I think there's a few green cards that do that. So you can see the blue and the green coming together, where, you know, bouncing is a blue thing and returning from the graveyard to your hand is a green thing. But no, for 5 mana, this could cost like 3 mana, and it might not even see any play then, because it's sorcery speed. If it was instant speed, then we might be talking. But until then, no thank you. Next up, we have the Augmenter Pugilist. Yes, how very pugilistic of you. Okay, got a big old Hulk fist going on there, and it's a double. Yes, it's a double-faced card. Nice. Two-sided card. I'll say that instead. So 3 mana, 3/3 for a Troll Druid that has trample. As long as you control 8 or more lands, it gets +5/+5. Well, ain't that something? My goodness. So, baseline, you know, without the bonus there. 3 mana, 3/3 trample. Okay, not going to say anything to play at that rate, but it's alright with a sort of limited pool there if you want to just put this in your thing, and it's okay on rate. But if you have 8 or more lands, now it's a 3 mana 8/8. Well, that's pretty good. I mean, if you can play multiples of these, wow, that's something. And if you have any way to somehow recur creatures that don't cost very much, maybe you're onto something there. Yeah, pretty nice card, not gonna lie. It's really cool workaround. It reminds me a lot of, like, it's an inverse Barbaros thing from Yu-Gi-Oh! Oh no, all the skill drain decks where if you sack a creature or whatever, you can come up with 3,000, the one that has 1,900, but then you play skill drain, so it has 3,000 anyway. Oh my god, it's huge! Except this way it's the other way around, where you gotta wait longer and then it's bigger, but still playable. It's cool. This side is perfectly fine. There's something crazy about it. Even if you do like a 3-mana 8/8 trample is great. You ramping up to 8 lands is going to be very difficult, unless it's just solely get land, play this guy, have nothing else to do, concede. But the fail state is a 3/3. All right, moving past that, the other side of this is Echoing Equation. A 5-mana sorcery. Choose target creature you control. Each other creature you control becomes a copy of it until end of turn, except those creatures aren't legendary if the chosen creature is legendary. So, interesting. It only lasts for the turn, worth noting. And sorcery speed isn't too relevant here. Sure, you can try to do something like sneaky. If it was an instant, you could have tried to do something sneaky during your opponent's turn and be like, guess what? Everything now is something with lifelink, and, you know, you're just going to give you a much life, and woe is you. Whereas now, he's just the other way around. It's nice that it has a whole legendary thing where if you target, say, your own Vorinclex if you want to, or see, art, not that it's really played very much, but is Questing Beast legendary? I feel like it might be. How you can just have everything become a copy and not worry about the legend rule. So that's nice. It's convenient. I don't really see this being great because I mean, blue and green sure has a decent number of creatures. I'll give it that. You can play a decent creature package, not just ramp and card draw, especially because there's no more growth spiral. So what are you gonna do? But that being said, I don't really feel like there's too many creatures you're gonna have on your board. Usually, with what we have with current like Sultai Ultimatum is you have a few little things here and there. You ramp up. You have Vorinclex for sure. You have the pardon me, you have like Sharknado tokens, so that's a thing. You can try to make other things into copies of the token, and maybe it's just a stronger token. You also have, what have we? Of course, you have Kiorbis, the Sea God, and Vorinclex. I think, did I mention Vorinclex already? Maybe, I don't know. So a few decent options there, but nothing really great. For 5 mana, making everything a copy, you already have to have things set up. Not a huge fan. Meme potential out the window, absolutely. Memes are going all the way, but meh. So with that, plus this, they don't really seem like they fit really well in the same deck. I don't really know where you're going. This is more like, I'm going to be aggressive and punch things in the face. This is like, I'm going to have a bunch of little guys and then one big guy and then try to make everything the big guy. Combo, aggro, not exactly. Moving forward. Biomathematician. A 3-mana 2/2. When Biomathematician enters the battlefield, create a 0/0 green and blue fractal creature token. Put a +1/+1 counter on each fractal you control. So the tokens that they generate, because each class, I guess, you know, there's Quandrix and the Prismari and the not Strixhaven, that's the name of the school, I guess, the Silver Quill, whatever. I'm not going to name the other two, I don't want to. They each have their own token creatures that they generate, and the Quandrix school makes fractals, which are, I like fractals just as a mathematical thing. I think they're pretty cool, so that part really resonates with me. Yeah, but let's see, beyond that, like 3 mana, you make it, see, so you make a 2/2 and then it has a 1/1, then it can buff a few other things if you have more tokens out there. No, I don't want a 3 mana 2/2 and a 1/1. It seems very, very plain and blah and not very enthused. Not very enthusing. You don't have my attention anymore. You said fractal, then you lost it. Alright, bad card. Okay. Body of Research. Oh, it costs a whole bunch of green and a whole bunch of blue. So let's see what it does. 6 mana. Create a 0/0 green and blue fractal creature token. Put X +1/+1 counters on it, where X is the number of cards in your library. So of course, if you're playing this in limited, I mean, you could run as many cards as you want in your library and just try to mulligan until you open this thing and hopefully get lands, and then play like a, you know, 80/80, and then your opponent plays a single kill spell and they're like, oh damn, or they chump block it until you don't have anything to do. But more realistically, you know, in the constructed format, where you'll have 60 cards, if you play it like early enough, even if you play it halfway through the game, it'll probably be around like a 30/30, 20/20 sort of thing, like in that range. For 6 mana, that's a lot. Like, that's a lot. That's a big number. That's one of those like 1/2 punch at you're dead sort of things. If you can give it trample somehow, that's enough to have your opponent like have to answer it. Like, it's not that you can like chump block anymore. It is a forced answer, and if they don't have it, then you win. Ta-da. So for 6 mana, this is pretty legit. Sure, you can run into some sort of board wipes or whatever, but if you're running blue already, you might have some counter spells up your sleeve to try to protect the creature. Yeah, wow, I wouldn't be too surprised. Like, I'm surprised this card exists. I wouldn't be surprised if it goes beyond plus ultra. Yeah, there we go. I'm gonna stick with that one. And limited is still really good because you probably get at least like a 10/10 out of the darn thing. And in standard, you know what? This is gonna see some play, because why not? If blue-green is decent, if you can run blue and green alongside something else, maybe not Bant, I don't know, maybe Bant's fine. But Jeskai, not Jeskai, because that's that doesn't involve green. But I'm thinking of a color from something. Teamer. I think Teamer is the most likely one. Or actually, you know what? While I'm talking about Teamer, we already have Sultai decks. You can try throwing this in there. Why the hell not? I think you have Sultai with Yorion anyway, so your deck's even bigger. It's all about that big deck. All right, listen. Whatever they told you, size matters. Moving on. Decisive Denial. 2 mana instant speed. Choose one target creature you control. Fights target creature you don't control. I was gonna say fights another. I was like, wait. There is no word in between there. There's just fights target creature. Okay, cool. Or counter target non-creature spell unless its controller pays 3, and they've heard enough. So here's your little counter spell thing there. It's kind of neat. Strange how they're including like a counter spell and a fight effect, and you pick one of the two. It makes sense color-wise, but like, it's a very strange combination to have on a card. I don't know if we've seen this before. If we have, then you know more magic than I do. But if not, then we're good. So fight effects are okay, not really the biggest thing. We kind of have, what is it, Primal Might that kind of takes the stage with that one, because it costs like X and a green, so you can basically just pay a single single green mana and have things fight, and the X can just make your thing more powerful if you need it to be. And the 2 mana counter target non-creature unless the controller pays 3. That's like a mana leak, but specifically for non-creature spells. This isn't bad. This actually isn't bad at all. So I guess if you're playing against creatures, you want to have some creatures in your thing to use the fight because you can't counter them. And if you're playing against non-creature things, then you can just try to counter them. And 3 mana is a lot. Don't even think that's not real. Like Spell Pierce does 1 mana, they have to pay 2. This is 2 mana, they have to pay 3. Like I said with Mana Leak, like it's a real card. It's not something to be ignored. So, damn. Oh, I like this card. I like this card. It fits into like a little niche area where it can go either way. It's very versatile in that. Yeah, just make sure that you're running creatures with this. Don't just run this solely for the counter target non-creature spell. This is controller pays 3, because that's a waste of a card right there. There are better options if you want to just run negate. Just run negate if that's what you're looking for. But as long as you're running some decent creatures, go ahead. I wouldn't mind if you side this out later on. It's perfectly reasonable to say that, but maybe game 1 is just potential. It has potential. Alright, double major. Oh, for the same cost of a green and a blue. Instant speed, copy target creature spell you control, except it isn't legendary if the spell is legendary. And it says in little reminder text there, a copy of a creature spell becomes a token. So this has to be done while the creature spell is on the stack, while the thing is attempting to resolve, or while it's, while it's on the stack. Let's just say that because I don't know. Attempting, it's resolving, it's doing this, it's that. I don't know. While it's falling for taxes, then you have to activate this thing. You have to throw this on there. And I guess that also helps because your opponent, if they try to counter something, you can throw this on top, and it's like, okay, 2 mana, I'm not countering your thing, but I'm putting another one of those. I'm putting a copy of the creature on the stack. So now you have to stop this one. Sort of like a free 2 mana counterspell that maybe also gets you 2 creatures on the side. If, let's see, if you want to do a Vorinclex and have 2 of those, like I keep going to Vorinclex, really big creature. Pretty effective at what it does. Closes out games pretty well. Then that's a great thing. Just have 2 of those. I guess it's doubling would apply twice. I don't think it like has a blanket like just 2 times. I think it would be like 2 times, and the other one applies like a 4 times essentially total. So yeah, that'd be a lot. I don't know how many counters you're putting on things, but Planeswalker just I'm gonna +1. That's actually +4. I'm just gonna do whatever, that sort of thing. Your opponent's Planeswalkers will never enter the battlefield ever again. So yeah, I like this card. I think it's really, really nice actually. Even in limited, you just make this become a copy of your biggest creature. Even if you're like, say you're at 5 mana and you can play 5 mana dude or essentially 2 3 mana dudes, and where that would normally cost you 6 mana, this is actually like the farther up you go, obviously the more value you get, but pretty legit. I like it. Yeah, limit is good. Standard, I think it'll see some play there, just more so against counterspell decks, I think, to get around things. If there are any control counter decks, then yeah. If not, maybe not so much. But you have to have like blue-green with a heavy influence, heavy base of creatures in your deck, which is gonna be like strange because you want to run these and you want to run these, but also you want bodies. I guess that's where this could come in, but not so much. Alright, here we go. Clickety clackety clickety. Here we go. Emergent sequence. 2 mana sorcery. Search your library for a basic land card, put it into the battlefield tapped, then shuffle your library. That land becomes a 0/0 green and blue fractal creature. It's still a land. Put a +1/+1 counter on it for each land you had enter the battlefield under your control this turn, which is probably going to be 2. I mean, you could resolve multiples of these, obviously, and then it's going to be 3 or 4, or who knows. If you're ramping enough, then that's pretty awesome. Added value there. But 2 mana, put a basic land into the battlefield tapped is a standard effect. Nothing crazy to write home about. I think, what is that just rampant growth, or is that some other thing? Standard kind of sort of ramp spell. But then it immediately just becomes a creature. It seems nice until you realize that now this thing's a 1/1 or a 2/2 essentially, and Bone Crusher Giant still exists. So, oh, you know that ramp that you had? No, I'm just gonna kill it, and I'm gonna play my 4/3 next turn, and it feels pretty bad because you just spent a turn doing essentially nothing. Yeah. So, unlike Nissa, who made things 3/3s, and they were a little more robust and also had vigilance and things, that was kind of nice. This. I would actually prefer this didn't make them a creature. Do something else. You don't even have to do anything else and just be a very, very boring card that doesn't see play. But as it is now, You can try. Don't count on getting too many counters on things. See, count on counters. Yeah, odds are you're gonna get maybe 2 plus 1 plus 1 counters, unless you do some weird historic Nissa ulti. All the lands are out there. Play one more emergent sequence to search for like an island because you already got the LaForce out of your deck, and then this island is now like a 13/13. But I don't. No. I think that the drawback is actually that it becomes a creature. So sure, you can use it with the other thing that makes all your creatures copies of something, and then your lands become copies of that thing, but you also have to pay mana, obviously, so your lands are tapped, unless it's something like ETB, untap things. But then we're going to some sort of Splinter Twin, Pastormite. Don't even, get out of my head. Okay, Eureka moment. So, I don't like you. Don't like you. You went too far. 4 mana, instant speed, draw 2 cards. You may put a land card from your hand onto the battlefield. So this is literally just 2 growth spirals put together. And that's a chinchilla. But I don't know, sometimes they make little noises. So, anywho. So you might well say, well, Growth Spiral is a fantastic card. It's amazing. It got banned because it was so good. Even when you weren't trying to ramp, you top deck it. Well, you just pay 2 mana and draw another card. And if you get a land, you play that too. It was pretty much good in every situation. 4 mana Growth Spiral. Sure, 2 Growth Spirals is nice, but oh my goodness. I mean, I guess it doesn't let you put 2 lands on the battlefield, but oh jeez. The more I think about this, the more the chinchilla squeaks. But because I'm thinking about this as compared to like Chemist's Insight, and although you only play this card once as opposed to twice, you get to ramp a little bit. Having 4 mana open at the end of your turn isn't exactly the worst thing, especially if you're trying to play some sort of counter spells. If you have any creatures with flash, by the way, I mean the octopus still exists, right? Ooh, my goodness, this is actually a card now. Holy crap. It's not as good as Growth Spiral. Don't even go any close. Like, it doesn't even get close to that because you're ramping from 4 mana to 6, I guess. Or you get an extra land for 5, and then you play a land drop for 6. If you have any big 6 mana things that you're trying to get to somewhat reliably, okay. I guess you can use Cultivate to get to. Well, Cultivate gets you to 5, and then this would. But that would guarantee the land in hand to help you get to 6. Okay, you know, there's things. Or 7. You could try to play this in Sultai. I don't know. But the more I talk about this card, the more I look at it, the more I like it. So I feel like there's really great potential there. In Limited, it might be a little too slow, but in Standard, where you can like really like reliably, the first couple of turns, kind of either do more ramp, like Cultivate, like I said, or try to slow the game down a little, control the board some, you might be in store for. You might have something in it. I don't know. In store for a victory. I don't know. I like it though. I actually really like this card a lot. Yeah, like 8 out of 10. Like, I think this might be. I don't know how people are evaluating this card, but I'm evaluating it highly. Okay. The golden ratio. I have a pin that has the golden ratio on it, or the little golden spiral. This is blue. So 3 mana sorcery, draw a card for each different power among creatures you control. I hate it. I don't think it's very useful. In Limited, it's kind of too slow. You're relying on having creatures on the board. Sure, if you have 1 creature, it's 3 mana draw 1. That's terrible. You want at least 3 mana draw 2. That's divination. Still no one plays that. So you want to kind of get like a 3 mana draw 3 to get some kind of advantage there. It means you actually have to have at least 3 creatures on the board. Otherwise, it's bad. No. No. Yeah, for that exact reason, no. Interestingly, if you're doing like the fractal creatures get buffs and such, and like tokens, you could potentially stagger it where you have like a fractal enters, it's a 1/1, and another fractal enters and it buffs both of them. I'm thinking about the little spirally dude where it adds counters to all your fractals. So now it like actually does the whole like stair step. Okay, the 1/1 becomes a 2/2 and you have a new 1/1, and then you do another one and you have a 3/3, a 2/2, 1/1. Okay. That's sort of like the Disneyland scenario, well, if I play all these cards right and I just goldfish and my opponent doesn't respond with anything at all and doesn't remove any creatures, I can draw so many. No. No. This card draws you 2 cards every time. No. Okay. Jazdi, Oracle of Arcavios. Okay, I was worried for a second because I saw Arcavios and I was like, oh, did I get the English one, or am I going to have to try to translate this on the fly? The linguist that I am. Not. I am not. Okay, so we have an 8 mana 5/5 legendary. Doesn't have to be a huge drawback though. We can get around that as we just saw. You can discard a card to return it to your hand. Pardon me there, so that's nice. And also has the Magecraft ability. I think this is the first time we're seeing that in this video of the Magecraft, where it is an ability that triggers whenever you cast or copy an instant or sorcery spell. So that first part, that I just stated, that is going to be common across all things that have the Magecraft ability. Keyword, although it's actually in reminder text, so it's just kind of there to cue you in that something's going to trigger when that happens. It's not actually like a real keyword, like addendum in Drafting Allegiance. But anyway, so in this case, when you trigger that, you reveal the top card of your library. If it's a non-land card, you may cast it by paying one generic mana, one whatever mana, rather than paying its mana cost. If it's a land card, put it onto the battlefield, just put it on there, and it comes in on tap. That's kind of cool. So let's see then. So you want to be able to play this for 8. 5/5, decent, not great there. Has slight protection in that, discard, bounce it back, okay. Cool, and you can keep doing that. Reminds me a little bit of Slinvoda. Was it Slinvoda? I think it was Slinvoda. The one back in Dominaria or whatever, where whenever someone played an instant or sorcery, you could draw a card, and then you can discard 3 to exile it and never return at the end, something along those lines. So that same thing where if your opponent tries to kill it, you can respond discarding. Oh, they try to kill it again, I can respond again. But dropping your whole hand to save this thing isn't really that great, and then you spend 8 mana your next turn to play it again and wait. Let's see. On top of that, not only do you have to play this for 8 mana, hopefully you ramp up to it, but then you have to have some mana to play an instant or sorcery spell, or copy, and then you have to have 1 more mana to be able to cast whatever. It does say cast, which is good because, I guess since you're casting it, your opponent can counter it, but also it gets cast triggers off Emrakul if you're playing in other formats. Let's see that. But yeah, since you still have to pay another mana, so you have to have a lot of mana on the board. 8 plus at least 1 in theory, plus at least another 1, so 10 mana. And this is your play. Sure, it feeds off itself really, really well if you have a whole lot of instant or sorceries. Or actually, just gonna be a non-land card, so that's cool. It can be a creature on top too. Doesn't have to be instant or sorcery, but you're already going to be running them to get the Magecraft ability to go off. Expensive, high-end, I don't think it's going to see any play. In Standard, I think it's just way too slow. In, this could be, potentially a control deck, Curve Topper, like Slinvoda, although this is nowhere near that same power level. Because that one also generated card advantage for you whenever your opponent tried to kill it, and then it kind of fed its own protection. This is just things are going onto the battlefield, or you're revealing things. It's not, yeah. All right, other side of this thing though. Journey to the Oracle. First we have to get to the, no, first we see the Oracle, then we have to get to the Oracle. That's a little backwards, oh well. 4 mana, sorcery, mythic rare. I guess it's mythic already, I just didn't notice until the second half. They had it in the first half, not gonna lie. You may put any number of land cards from your hand onto the battlefield. Let's see. Then if you control 8 or more lands, you may discard a card. If you do, return Journey to the Oracle to its owner's hand. So the idea behind this, or the combo, the self combo, is you have some mana already on the board. Obviously, some lands. You're not going to play this with 0 lands. I mean, I guess you could potentially somehow, but we're gonna ignore that weird situation where you're playing Legacy. So you play this thing. You manage to hit the second trigger where you control 8 or more lands. And then you discard a card, which apparently you have enough lands in hand to make it 8 or more, plus another card in hand to throw away. And you manage to get this back, and then you play Jazdy, and you already have the mana to play it, obviously. Plus, hopefully, another 2 mana just kind of hanging around somewhere. Maybe you have lands that produce more than 1 mana per thing. Maybe you have some other ramping. It's possible. It's worth noting that this doesn't count how much mana you can make. It says you have to have 8 or more lands. So yeah, there's not too much. I'm thinking Utopia Sprawl, but that's obviously not. Willful Haven, I guess, doesn't really help you too much there. And Nissa doesn't help too much there, but Nissa's not in Standard anymore, so what are you doing? But I do like the fact that it just says, take all the lands in your hand, throw them onto the board, see what happens. Hopefully you don't have too many lands in your hand, but yeah. I think largely this is actually not good. Again, same scenario where this can be a curve topper, not for this effect, but a curve topper for control decks. Because beyond that, this isn't really going to see too much play, I don't think. Sure, if you dump all the lands, then you played all your lands, and you probably don't have much in your hand anymore. You can ideally ramp from what, 4 to 6 or 7? Like, how many cards do you even have in your hand at that point? Yeah, so I don't like this side much at all, and this side is okay. In limited, I wouldn't play it because 8 mana 5/5 isn't good enough, and this is not really a great effect. In standard, it might be a 1 of or 2 of in like very, very few decks. Alright, and we have a Dean! There's a very, very interesting choice of attire. I don't know, so I'm like, blur, and blur, and I'm like, blur, and like looks oddly boxy, even though it's very, like, you know, flowy and leafy. Alright, Kiane? Kanye, Dean of Substance. 3 mana, 2/2. And a legendary elf. Cool. You can tap this creature, exile the top card of your library. If it's a... Sorry, I'm having a hard time reading. It's like, if it's I'm tired and I'm in true, like, you know, school of whatever fashion, not only did I procrastinate enough, but I also am fueled currently by caffeine. There we go. There is mountain in this dude, trust me. So... yeah, I'm embracing my inner college student. Alright. So tap, exile the top card of the library. If it's a land card, put it into your hand, otherwise put a study counter on it. Okay, you can pay 4 and make a 0/0 green and blue fractal creature token. Put a +1/+1 counter on it for each different mana value among non-land cards you own in exile with study counters on them. What? What? Exile the top card. If it's a land, you put it to your hand. So you exile it. Oh, it's a land. Okay, I draw it. So basically, if it's land, draw the card. Otherwise, it's gone. But you could potentially make a big fractal thing for 5 mana. I mean, this should cost 2, right? Am I wrong? Because it takes so long to get somewhere? Does the other side interact with study counters? Otherwise, like, I have no idea where they're going with this. I see study counter. Hold on, let's see. Alright, so 4 mana, 3/3. I'm gonna come back to the first side, because otherwise it's useless. 4 mana, 3/3 flyer. You can pay X and 2 blue and tap this. Exile the top X cards of your library, and put a study counter on each of them. Then you may put a card you own in exile with a study counter on it into your hand. So if you don't want to actually exile things, like if you already have some things exiled with Kanye, or whatever, you can actually just pay the 2 blue, ignore the X equals 0, exile 0 cards, but if they're already exiled due to maybe you have this on the board already, and you know, it's 2 sides of the same card, you're running multiples, whatever, then you can use that to get the card back. But this is like a really convoluted, like, I thought Karn was difficult with the silver counters, where it was like, okay, you pick 2 of them, one of them goes to your hand, the other one gets exiled with a silver counter, and you can minus Karn and get a card with a silver counter back. This is too much. Now, unlimited, worth noting, this is a 4 mana 3/3 flyer. That's cool. And the fact that you basically get to, if you want to dump a whole lot of mana into it, mana sink, right? You can pick 1 card of X and put it into your hand, and the rest of them can come back eventually. And yeah, beyond that, this side is nice. This side is good. It gets you more cards, it gets you card advantage, it pulls the things out that you want. You can attack or keep it back as a blocker and then use his ability, sure. This side makes no damn sense to me. If it was a 2 mana 2/2, I'd be behind this a little more. Otherwise, I'm on this side all day. I like owls, and that's all I got for you. Limited, sure, still play this because at least you got a few options. And like I said, the body is fine for a flyer. And standard, I mean, Cosima, whatever, the goddess of the voyage or whatever it was, and the keel haul and whatnot, that tried to promise, you know, getting some good land drops and getting card draw and things, and didn't do anything. No one plays that card. I'm getting similar vibes here. This is not, I know it had like a similar thing with Karn I said with the silver counters, but this is not a Karn, this is not a planeswalker, this is a creature, and it's not of the same caliber. Leyline Invocation. 6 mana sorcery, create a 0/0 green and blue fractal creature token. Where have we seen that before? Put X +1/+1 counters on it, where X is the number of lands you control. So, in theory, it comes out at least a 6/6, unless you have some other mana ramp, and either mana rocks or something like I said, Willful Haven, or some other mana, like, you know, additional mana spell that we have, which I don't know where it is. Mana rocks, mana dorks. There's creatures that you know, tap for mana. What is it? Elfish Visionary? No, that's the one that draws you a card. Or maybe it is that one. There's one where they took like Llanowar Elf and Elvish Visionary. And it's like Llanowar Visionary. There we go. They literally put the two together. I'm a genius. Give me a job, Wizards. But anyway, so that will detract from some of the, you know, the counters from some of the power on this thing. And otherwise, it's 6 mana, make a 6/6. I mean, you're kind of cool and all. I like it, and there is some synergy with other fractal tokens out there, but this isn't a great card. It's a common card. I think they know what they're doing. It's just a cool way to embrace the flavor of Quandrix while still making a card that with an effect that we've seen before, and just kind of tailoring it to the set's needs, to the set design. So I really appreciate that. In limited, this card's fantastic. This card's great. It's like a 3.5, even like 4 out of 5, just because you can. No, sorry. I was thinking of like an X in green. No. It's like a 3.5 out of 5. 6 mana, 6/6. Sure, that's cool. No trample, but it's still a decent body. And standard, no. No. Okay. Manifestation Sage. Ah, yes, the hybrid mana. Worth noting. I said it in the other reviews. I'm gonna say it here too. Devotion. Theros is still a set that is in standard. There are still, you can use this with Thassa or with, I guess, Nylea. Don't really run on Nylea because she doesn't see any play. But Thassa's a card. The whole exile and bring it back, it blinks things every now and then. Yeah, that exists. So that's something to consider. Alright, 4 mana 2/2. Also consider that stat line's bad. When it enters the battlefield, create a 0/0 green and blue fractal creature token. Put X plus 1/1 counters on it, where X is the number of cards in your hand. Okay, so let's say you play this on curve turn 4. So you have 7 cards in your hand, and we'll take the optimistic way, say you're on the draw, which is not ideal, I guess, but still. So you draw a card, you have 8, play a land, maybe nothing. Okay, pass, sure. You have 7, you go back up to 8 again, play a land, probably play a 2-drop or something. So now you're at, what, 6? 7, play 2 more cards, you're at 5. And then, what's that? Go to 6, play a land, play this thing. And you are at 4 cards in hand. So you make a 4/4 with a 2/2 hanging up beside it. Okay. That's somewhat sort of reasonable, but at the same time, you don't want to, like, 4 mana, make a 4/4 and a 2/2. Sure, altogether, like, yeah, 4 mana 6/6 sounds good. This is not a 4 mana 6/6. It's not terrible, though. Like, all things considered, like, it's not bad, but obviously you can't really top deck this thing. If you play it off the top deck with nothing in your hand, it makes a 0/0 and it dies because it's not X plus 1 counters, it's just X and it just dies immediately. So in constructed, I don't think this is gonna see any play. Yeah, you can make a big thing, but you can make big things in other ways. In limited, I think in constructed as well, you're almost always going to want to play the one where you put 2 more mana into it and you make something that's equal to the size of your deck rather than the size of your hand. Usually the deck is bigger than the hand. Not always. There are shenanigans, but usually. Let's see there. Yeah, limited, I don't like it. I don't like it in limited. I don't like it in standard. I don't like it at all. Needlethorn Drake. 2 mana flying death touch. Cool. This reminds me of that. It's like that, what's it called? Baleful Strix, is it? The artifact creature owl thingy that I think also has just flying and death touch. I think it also draws you a card when it enters the battlefield though, which is why people play it. And because it's an artifact, so you get like Metalcraft or some other synergy with that, affinity, whatever. Not Metalcraft. Jeez, Mirrodin much? Anyway. This is okay. You can run like one of these in limited just to help, like, you know, block something in the air. In standard, it's useless. Okay. Quandrix Apprentice. 2 mana 2/2. Hey, we have a bear. Look at you. You're the most bear of all the bears. Okay. Magecraft. Whenever you cast or copy an instant or sorcery spell, look at the top 3 cards of your library. You may reveal a land card from among them. Put that into your hand. Put the rest in the bottom of the library in any order. So not a huge effect here. You don't actually put it on the battlefield. It just goes into your hand. So it's it kind of sucks because there's that bittersweet part where, yay, I get to put a land in my hand and these cards are gone because they're not land. Ideally, I guess you get like, you know, 3 lands and just pick one and you start hitting like, you know, actual gas instead of just useless land. Ugh. So there's an interesting balance you want to have there between like, I want lands to trigger the thing, but I don't want to just have lands because then I don't actually play any non-land cards and I lose the game. But yeah, for a 2/2, it's fine. It's perfectly fine. In limited, I would probably play a few of these if you had them, because you have the potential to smooth out your curve, not ramp, but kind of just smooth out the curve, get more reliability with the land drops. In Standard, there are better ways to just actually ramp than playing a 2-mana 2/2 and then trying to add lands to your hand later on. Quandrix command, just the command! The commands are usually pretty good. Let's see where we're at with this one. 3 mana, love the artwork. I was like, and then somehow it gets there. Alright, we're going to be choosing 2, as with all the commands. 2 of 4. Return target creature or planeswalker to its owner's hand. Okay, bounce. I like it. Counter target artifact or enchantment spell. Makes sense because green likes to destroy artifacts or enchantments and blue counters things. Okay, moving on. But 2 +1/+1 counters on target creature. Not very interested in that. Weird kind of combat trick, but it fits with how they're doing fractals and changing people's power levels and things. Target player shuffles up to 3 target cards in their graveyard into the library. Why? Why? I mean, it's a thing you can do, but why? So I feel like, you know, with every command, you kind of want to figure there's going to be one. There should be at least one of the 4 abilities or 4 options that is like your standard, like no matter what, this one will always be like a go-to. With Kolaghan's command is like the discard, you can just, you know, have a discard. With the Lorehold command, which I reviewed earlier, there's a Lightning Helix effect, literally deal 3 to something, gain 3 life. That's always something you can do. There's not really a bad side to that unless like you got hit with some weird Sanguine Bond stuff and you're actually gonna take damage and some weird nonsense ensues. But, you know, there's a good option that fits every occasion, right? In this case, I feel like that one it's tied between the first and the last, just based on if your opponent has anything, and sometimes you don't even want to like return something to their hand. Say they had a planeswalker on the board and they minused it, and then you say, oh, I don't want to have that on the board anymore, I'm gonna bounce it. Okay, I play it again and minus it again. You shouldn't be able to you should be able to avoid the situation, or hopefully leverage, like maybe bounce a creature instead and kill the planeswalker, but bouncing things and killing them are 2 very different things. And as far as the last ability goes, it's cool, I guess. You can mess with the size of your deck or your graveyard if that's relevant, and you can increase your chances of potentially getting something. You can try to recur a certain, you know, powerful card you used, but I think this is actually the weakest of the commands. And I mean, the combat trick one, if you're playing this with creatures, obviously, then okay. The dream scenario here would kind of be something like your opponent goes to swing with the few creatures, you block, buff one of yours, so you attack over one, don't even trade, just like you completely destroy. You know, you win that one. And the other one, you bounce another one of the big creatures, and then they're done, and you swing in for lethal next turn, I guess. It's an oddly aggressive thing. Math is magic, but I don't know, aggravation is the key to success. Not so much. So this is the command I am least enthused for, unfortunately. Sorry, Quandrix, I don't think it's your best work. In Limited, you still probably want to play this because you have so many options for 3 mana. Instant speed is still decent. And you can probably counter something with it, but otherwise, you'll usually have a couple options that aren't terrible. In Standard, I honestly don't like it. You could be relegated to a sideboard thing if you know your opponent is playing artifacts or enchantments. Because beyond that, I don't like it. Beyond that, I don't think it's gonna see much play. Alright, Quandrix Cultivator, one of those weird little like diagonal sort of things, little hybrid mana betwixt the 2. So we have overall 4 mana 3/4. For a turtle druid, for a turtle, look at that. Alright, Uguay. When Quandrix Cultivator enters the battlefield, you may search your library for a basic forest or island card, put into the battlefield, then shuffle. Well, at least it puts it onto the battlefield for once. My goodness, thank you. So many things we've seen before. Just take it, put it into your hand, and you have it in your hand, and that's where it is. So at least you are ramping with this thing. For 4 mana, it has a, like, for what it does is actually pretty well statted. The 3/4 that ramps for 4 is pretty good, but it's also very, very slow, and what are you ramping to? Usually you want to ramp before turn 4. That's why Migration Path really sees no play, even though it's, you know, you get 2 lands out, yeah, but shouldn't we just play Cultivator for doing anything? Shouldn't we just play Land of War Visionary if we want to do that? Like, there are better options, and Wolfful Haven, I think, costs 3 mana and also has the other ability of, you know, sacking itself or whatever, making the wolf token, so you're cool. In Limited, you're actually super solid, and I love you. In Standard, you are much less solid, and I have no affection for you other than the fact that turtles are kind of cool, I guess. I don't know. Alright, Quandrix Pledge Mage. 3 mana 2/2 with Magecraft. Whenever you cast or copy an instant or sorcery spell, put a +1/+1 counter on Quandrix Pledge Mage. Okay, I mean, we have Brineborn Cutthroat, which does a kind of similar thing, and it costs less, and it has flash, and it just does a better job of it, and it also doesn't have any... I mean, I guess the hybrid mana actually makes it a little more splashable because it can be blue or green. It doesn't have to be specifically blue, but I think that the Brineborn Cutthroat is a better example of this card. They're both Merfolks too, so, you know, better comparisons there. So, yeah. In Limited, I could see myself playing one of these just because this, like the, not Frostborn weird, but the, is it Blister Coil weird? What's the one? The one from War of the Spark, because there's the ice one, and then there's like the fiery one where whenever you play a non-creature spell, you add a counter to it, and that thing can actually get out of control very, very quickly. And it's like, well, damn, I didn't kill it right away, and now it's too big for me to really block anymore. Damn, I guess I just lose. I guess I'll lose. So, in Limited, this card has a lot more potential. In Standard, there are better ways to get bigger creatures on the board. If you want to do that, there are better ways to make the deck this wants to be in. Okay, Serpentine Curve. Serpentine? Oh my goodness. There's clearly a T-Rex somewhere. I mean, we just did get out of Ikoria, so maybe there's a large behemoth, you know, bearing down on this thing, and it's like, Serpentine! Okay, 4 mana sorcery. Create a 0/0 fractal token. Put X +1/+1 counters on it, where X is 1+. Oh, I like the 1+. The total number of instant and sorcery cards you own in exile and in your graveyard. So if anyone's familiar with Crackling Drake, you kind of make that happen. Is it Crackling Drake? Yeah. Okay, that one draws you a card. I think it always has 4. Yeah, it's always an X4. And Enigma Drake is the 3 mana version that does not draw you a card and is an X3. Yeah, so let's see here. So for 4 mana, it doesn't involve red. Crackling Drake is specifically red, blue. So this can go in just a blue or blue-green, you know, whatever you're doing. And it doesn't change its power and toughness when, like, you know, throughout the game. It's just set when you cast it, of course. You know, I don't hate this card too much, but I don't think it's going to see much play, like, at all. In Limited, how many instant or sorceries are you planning on playing? If you get multiples of this, maybe you can do it, because, you know, you play one, you'll play the second one, and it's stronger because the first one's in the graveyard, right? But in Standard, this is too slow to make an XX creature. Even if it's big, I feel like, okay, you have 4 mana. If you have enough things in the graveyard, you probably have 6 mana. Play the other one, make one big dude. But I guess that means you have to be running blue and green. If you're not running blue and green, or if you're trying to run 3 colors and don't want to deal with the very strict color requirement of that other spell, then you can try to run this, but I don't think this is going to, you know, really... People will have no issues running Sultai Ultimatum, which is a very specific, very specific mana cost. So I think doing, you know, triple green, triple blue is not really a huge deal. We have really good mana fixing right now, just saying. Not as good as, like, you know, the Shocklands. Sure, those are better, but we still have pretty good options. Square up. I'm like, come at me. Parry this, you filthy casual. I don't know. So for 1 and a hybrid of the blue-green, instant speed, target creature has base power and toughness 4/4 until end of turn. So I can see this if you want to try to run, I'm trying to think creatively now, like, well, if you want to run, not Anger of the Gods, Storm's Wrath, I think is the one where it deals 4 to everything, to all creatures and planeswalkers. This, if there's a creature that's a little too strong, you can make it a 4/4, granted it's base power toughness, so if it has any counters on it, then it's, you know, any +1/+1s, like these fractal things, you know, then it will, of course, just be buffed beyond that. But, you know, it can be a good way to get something out of the way if you need to. Granted that Storm's Wrath doesn't really see any play anymore, so I wouldn't count on that. So more so, this is just like some kind of a combat trick. In Limited, sure, you can try to buff one of your guys. I don't think bringing your opponent's creature down to 4/4 is going to happen too much, because 4/4 is really substantial. It's in the middle of the line, but, like, middling is 3/3. 4/4 is just over the hump there of, you know, above average. So in Limited, that's like, okay, you kind of want to buff your own dudes. In Standard, no. Do not want. Alright. Ooh, hello, and this is the Elder Dragon for Quandrix. Let's see what we got here. A good old 5-mana 4/4 flying trample. I like it so far. I like the artwork. It reminds me of some... Is it some classical or some kind of like hieroglyphic thing? It almost looks Egyptian in like the way, like the pose maybe, and just like the shapes. I don't know exactly, but I like the way it, I like the portrayal here. I think it's just the math. I just like the math. There's like the triangle, and you can see like all the angles and stuff. Anywho. When Tanazir Quandrix enters the battlefield, double the number of +1/+1 encounters on target creature you control. Just one creature. Single one. Not impressed. Moving on. Whenever Tanazir Quandrix attacks, you may have the base power and toughness of other creatures you control become equal to Tanazir Quandrix's power and toughness until end of turn. I mean... There's a similarity between these, just you make everything else have 4/4, and of course if you want to get the most out of it, not only do you have to play creatures that get counters on them, or play more fractal things where you can basically just double the power of the fractal, but you also want to run ways to buff Tanazir Quandrix so that you can attack and buff your other creatures that way. It's a really, really long road to not a whole lot of payoff. And I don't like it. In limited, this card is still fantastic. 5-mana 4/4 flying trample will win you the game. It's perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with this card. In standard, it's not doing enough. Like, sure, you can try to buff one of your creatures, but if you're buffing one of them, then let's see. You may have the base power of other creatures you control become equal. So I guess it's good that it's base power and toughness, because then you don't decrease the power of the creature that you just added more counters to. Not necessarily, at least unless it already had like a base power and toughness that was pretty high and it just has counters just because. So, no, I just, this card, I don't like this card. Oh, Simic, I'm sorry, Quandrix. Oh, Quandrix, you let me down. Proper name, Quandrix. Oh my goodness. Proper noun. Leave, please. Ooh, this has to be, it's a Z, it has to be the last one. It is, alright, almost done. So, Zimone? I imagine it's kind of like Simone, but Zimone. Quandrix Prodigy. For 2 mana, you get a 1/2 legend. You can pay 1 and tap this. You may put a land card from your hand onto the battlefield tapped. Okay, cool. 2 mana, you can do that and get a little ramp, sure. 4 mana and tap it, draw a card. If you control 8 or more lands, draw 2 cards instead. You know what? Repeated ramping ability in this one creature, and then later on when you have enough lands, it just draws you more cards. That's a good design. This I like. This I think is terrible. This is good. I don't know why one's a mythic and the other one's uncommon. Maybe just because they could have easily made this thing a rare. Not that I want them to make things rare, and then there's the whole like actual real life price, and I gotta spend more on my wild cards. But this is good design. Will it see any play? Maybe. I mean, in limited, this is actually really good. It's not a huge body at all, but it always gives you something to do. And it draws you more cards at the very least. It's not exactly a mana sink, but it helps you, you know, break stalled board states and like accelerate your game. In standard, there might be better ways to ramp and draw cards, but this is definitely a contender up there. This is something you consider, probably put into a deck, see how it plays. Like, this is borderline just going in right away. Like, this has some real potential. I would watch out for it. I would play test with it and just see how it goes. And go from there. I think this actually can make the cut. So, without further ado, without any more cut making, that is it! Thank you so much for sticking with me while my face phases in and out of existence. I'm actually from Terminator 2, but, you know, it's just, we'll keep that under your little hat, you know. Since Arnold Schwarzenegger has been relegated to California, I feel safe terrorizing the East Coast. So, and reviewing Magic cards. So thank you very much for staying with me and watching the review. If you like what you saw or you don't like what you saw, if you have an opinion whatsoever, feel free to put it down in the comments below. If not, that's all cool. Also, feel free to check out my Twitch. There's a link to it down there, where I will hopefully be playing some of Strixhaven when it comes out soon. So without further ado, I think I said it a few times, good night or good morning, depending on where you are in the world, but as always, good luck.